I request everybody, please stand up for the universal prayer. I request everyone, please raise your voice to higher planes so that we can all work together to do the work of the higher ones for which we all met together. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom.
O hidden life, vibrant in every atom.
O hidden light, shining in every creature.
O hidden light, shining in every creature.
O hidden love, embracing all in oneness.
O hidden love, embracing all in oneness.
May each who feels himself as one with thee
May each who feels himself as one with thee
know he is also one with every other.
know he is also one with every other.
Thank you. You may please take your seat. Good morning and a very warm welcome to the Indian section headquarters in Varanasi. It is a beautiful day, and this is probably one of the most beautiful periods of weather in Varanasi, which is otherwise quite extreme. I'm very happy that you are here in such large numbers. A lot of effort has been put to put this program together, and the person who is leading this effort is none other than Brother Pradeep Mahapatra. He has worked relentlessly for months. I believe this was planned way back in July, early July, since he started working on this. And he's a very good planner. Every minute detail he plans, and so this is what he has created, and I believe he deserves a lot of credit for all this. It's very nice to meet at least once, if not more, during the year, so that we can all connect with each other, we can renew our bonds of friendship and togetherness, and enjoy the theosophical atmosphere that you will find in plenty over here. We have a very nice person that's going to be talking and taking this study class for the next 3 years, Brother N.C. Krishna.
This.
I've been associated with him for the last 7 years in the Indian section, and I found him to be very knowledgeable, very balanced in his approach, and I think the good part is that whatever he says, you can probably take it as the gospel too, because it is a very studied discourse that he will be presenting. I don't want to take much of your time because it is really Brother Krishna that will be with you all through these days. My request to you all is to please keep your mobiles shut. If you have not done that, you can do it right now. Just pick out your mobile, put it on silent mode, because it will disturb everyone and everyone's thoughts, which have been focused on the subject with great effort by Brother Krishna. I will also request everyone to come back in time for the different sessions so that we can start them at the right time. Thank you, and Brother Krishna.
Thank you.
Shall we take photos of
Good morning, everybody. Dear and respected brothers and sisters. I'm N.C. Krishna from Hyderabad. We're going to study together as part of the program which has been announced, The Way of Self-Knowledge by Madam Radha S. Bernier. The first printed page of the book, it gives us information that this is a lecture given by her, by Radhaji, which was called the Blavatsky Lecture, delivered at the annual convention of the Theosophical Society in England. And this information is available in the book. It's not something which I have Googled and found out. So the lecture was later. Should near it? Not blare? Okay. I'm afraid of the blaring of. It's all right? Fine. Not audible. Yeah. Okay. The book which you're going to study is The Way of Self-Knowledge by Radha S. Bernier. And this was actually a lecture given by her, the Blavatsky lecture as it was called. And that was delivered at the annual convention of the Theosophical Society, England. And the lecture was later produced and printed as a book by the Theosophical Publishing House. Brother Sri Ram, who happens to be the father of Madame Bernier, his books, most of the books which you might see in the Theosophical Publishing House, were also lectures which were put in the shape of a book. So many books are there of him, except few. Most of them are lectures given by him. So, Madam Radha S. Bernier also had lectured at Naarden, and all those lectures were produced as one book, which was called Human Regeneration, which is her pet topic. That was a pet topic, and she had produced that book or produced those lectures at Naarden. This book is a small book, looks very small. Like At the Feet of the Master is small, and we think it's small, so it's easy to understand, but then it's deceptively simple. It's not simple as it looks. Similarly, this book also looks small, but as the idiom goes, the good things come in small packages. That's what the English idiom says. And so we have this book, which is looking small, but is full of wisdom. And you will vouch for the wisdom the book rightly contains or conveys after perhaps going through the book all by yourself. Perhaps we are going to touch only few aspects of the book. Maybe we can complete, we may not complete, but then the bird's eye view of the book is given so that each individual, when they go through the book, they know what exactly the author or the speaker meaning Radhaji, what she was conveying. We are observing the birth centenary of Madam Radhaji. She was born on 15th November 1923. So this year being 2023, we are observing the centenary of Madam Radhaji. And in many ways, Radhaji was a simple, straightforward person. Very firm though. What she wanted, she conveyed it exquisitely, correctly, without mincing words. This is something which we all notice as we were young. We were speaking to her or she was speaking to us at the Youth Lodge and all that. We all know that she was our 7th international president and she served the Theosophical Society with distinction for 33 years. She did her best to add value to the work done by our earlier presidents. As already mentioned, she is the daughter of Brother Sri Ram. And another idiom says, she's a chip of the old block. So she is someone who is very much interested in theosophy from the very young age. And prior to this, becoming the international president, she was the general secretary. You can see the board here. She was the general secretary of the Indian section for about 14 years. So, Brother Sri Ram, a lot of sound is coming back from this, no problem. From here also.
18 years, 61.
Okay, 18 years. I stand corrected. 18 years. 17 is a good theosophical number, so I went for that. 17, I'm right, or 18? Right, okay. I thought 17, somehow 17 goes well with the TS numbers. And so, both Brother Sri Ram and Madam Radhaji laid stress on quality of the membership, and they used to say, quantity should go up, but without diluting the quality. This is the dictum. The quantity can go up, but without the quality being diluted. She used to give address to the new members on 1st January every year. And she would say, that used to happen in the headquarters hall, not in the convention place, because the convention is closed by then. So we used to meet. We also used to listen, though the address was meant for new people, new members. And she would say, she would urge the people who have joined to make theosophy into a reality in their lives. Theosophy should make a difference in their lives. This is what she used to say. Why, how, if the principles are applied, the principles of theosophy are applied, then she would say the members who join will become not only the members of the Theosophical Society, they will be on the path to become theosophists. There's a difference between member and a theosophist. So you take it up seriously, apply the principles, live the theosophy, yes, you go forward as on the path to become a theosophist. This is what she used to urge the new members who joined. So, what are we supposed to do? Study, understand, assimilate the essence, and with that essence, lead the right kind of life. Stress was on leading the right kind of life. It is not out of fear you lead the right kind of life, because punishment is there, so you are acting good. That's not what theosophy expects one to do. So it is out of wisdom one leads the right kind of life. Through wisdom, one leads the right kind of life. Am I disturbing it? Yeah. These bits of valuable information I have given of personal biography details is for those people perhaps who have not seen her alive, or perhaps those people who have not got those details into them. So this is for their benefit. A lot of people here I know who have worked with her and who have moved with her very closely, and it's not for them. For them it's carrying coal to Newcastle. So it's not that. It's for new people perhaps who are assembled here, some of them. If they do not know Madam Radhaji, it's about the information which was given to convey the details which she was, and she was such a splendid personality. In one word, we can say she was inspiring, to say the least. And I would say, with the grace of my maternal grandfather, who was also a national lecturer and a joint general secretary of the Indian section, we were fortunate to live at Adyar as people who were very young in formative period of our life. So we lived in the TS campus, on the TS campus, for a number of years, maybe 15 or 16 years. And yours truly, that's me, also had occasions to work with Radhaji and was guided, helped by her wisdom and her generosity. One evening in the year 1972, I was doing my CA apprenticeship days. I was sent to reach her the next morning. A messenger came and told me that Amma wants to see you in the morning. I said, really? He said, yes, you are supposed to go there. So I reached the Pasi quarters, which was her residence, very close to the sea. And I was waiting for about 2-3 minutes, and then she came from another room and she held my hand and said, how are you? I said, I'm very well, madam, how are you? She said, I'm doing well, but I want a help from you. I was shocked what help I can do to her. And then she said, your grandfather, if he were to be here, perhaps he would have taken care of this South Indian conference. But since he's away somewhere touring North India, I want you to fill his shoes and be the convener. And I was pleasantly surprised, I would say. And I said, you think I can manage? You should be confident. You are young. You should be confident. That's one message I got when I was talking to her. And then, what would you like to have? As we were sitting, she said, tea or coffee? I said, anything, madam. Because I don't want to trouble her or trouble her attendant. I said, anything. Don't you make choice? Don't you make right choice? She asked me. I said, I will have coffee. That's good. She said, this is how, making choices, being absolutely clear about what we are supposed to do. She was very, very clear as to how people should choice. And she said, I'm going to publish your name or send your name to the Indian Theosophists. Get ready to work as convener. Okay. All that was done thanks to her, because she guided me at every stage. She was there available at Adyar. So the South Indian Conference went off very well. For the first time in my life, I received 2 rupees delegate fee. That was the delegate fee those days for being a delegate to the South Indian Conference. So that's how she drafted me into her work and she guided me. And that meeting and the later interactions with her was a huge learning curve for me. And she was extremely nice, very, very generous in her way of introducing me to the people and all that. So I was quite fortunate, I would say. And another occasion where I would recall my association with her, working with her for New Life for India movement. So we visited all colleges in the city, and she would address the girls, she would address the boys. And one college, Stella Mary College, which is for girls, when she addressed and finished, they said once more. And she said, this is not a drama. I have conveyed what I have to convey, and that's it. So that's how effective speaker she was. You all know the New Life for India was an improvement on what Brother Raja had started as Ashok Chakra movement, and this New Life for India movement was for giving proper inputs to youngsters and the right values of citizenship and how to voice your opinions. Youngsters should know how to voice their opinions. These were all the training which we got. So I struck a personal note. I'm sorry I've done that because I would like to, of of course, refrain, but then talking about Radhaji, and if I don't mention how I benefited from her, I thought I should tell what exactly happened between Radhaji, how she was a teacher to me. She was simple, as I said, loving, kind, yet firm. I'll tell you one small example. Once we were experiencing water shortage at Adyar. The well which is there, that got dried up. And then she called for the meeting of all the residents. We met at the Blavatsky bungalow. And she would address all of them, and from the time you get up from the bed till you retire to the bed, she reviewed all the activities and how much water each activity would take. Can you get it? That precise she was. That precise she was. And her clarity of explaining what we had to do to conserve water was amazing. So precise she was. Yes. Why I'm saying clarity? This book, The Way of Self-Knowledge, and Madam Radhavaniya, whom we see there, has that clarity, has that depth and wisdom which we can experience while studying this book. All of you are familiar with Bhagavad Gita. So there are uvachas, means so and so said this. So we have Bhagavan Uvacha, we have Sanjay Uvacha, we also have Arjuna Uvacha. So all these Uvachas are so and so said this. So in this book, this small book, we have Radhaji, what she said, and H.P. Blavatsky Madam, what she said, and the elder ones, the masters, what they said. So mostly it is their sayings, which we are perhaps going to understand, consider, and move forward. She says this lecture was held in honor of Madam Blavatsky. So talking about Madam Blavatsky, Radhaji says, she quotes the words of her teacher. Her teacher means Madam Blavatsky's teacher. In the words of her teacher, Master M and Master KH, I'm mentioning the names because most of you perhaps are aware of the names of the inner founders of the Theosophical Society. She, meaning HPV, was a woman of most exceptional and wonderful endowments. Radhaji says, HPV not only possessed the endowments of qualities which the ordinary world recognizes, HPV not only possessed the endowments and qualities which the ordinary world recognizes, like the artistic capacities. She was a great piano player, not many know about it, or the intellectual brilliance of Madame Blavatsky. They are, of course, outstanding in nature, but Madam says, Radhaji says, her perceptive capabilities, perception and perceptive capabilities, says Radhaji, to go deeply into the subject of human bondage. That was something which was astounding. So Radhaji says, we'll have to pay homage to her because HPV has given her deep understanding to us about the problem of human bondage and deliverance from the human bondage. So HPV has shed a lot of light on that subject, but Radhaji says we need to understand and find out the method through one's own exertion. She said it. You have to study, understand, exert yourself, not simply read and move away saying that, yes, I know. This is normal practice, like if we go to school or college, this is how we pass exams. But here she says, Radhaji says, you have to understand, find out the method through one's own exertion, sadhana. So exertion is sadhana. Evolve one's own method. It's not copying somebody else's method. Evolve one's own method. And Radhaji says one might receive help from the elder ones or the people who are well informed. The wiser guides, she says, the wiser people would Meaning, presumably, perhaps, when we take one step forward, that's the what the one of the letters says. When you take one step forward, when we're exerting sincerely, when we're doing the sadhana sincerely, the higher ones, the learned ones, will perhaps step more towards us and help us to be on the path. So it is the holistic life she's talking about, not the compartmentalized life. Like I have a personal life, I have an official life, I have a spiritual life. It's not the compartmentalization she's talking about, the holistic life, the complete togetherness of life as it should be seen. That's what Madam Ji is suggesting. So the teachers of Madam Blavatsky, having observed her, says Madam Radhaji, over a period of time, found Madam Blavatsky to be a person with exceptional abilities. Exceptional abilities. That's what HPB was. So HPB's sense of commitment and dedication were not comparable, incomparable in a way. So HPB promised a teacher when she was 20 years old that she would work for the welfare of humanity. Because Master said, we are going to work for the welfare of humanity. Would you join us? She said yes. Immediately she said yes. And what Master cautioned her, she would get more brickbats than bouquets. She would get more brickbats than bouquets. So she said yes and kept her word in spite of life-threatening bouts of disease which she had continuously. The disease was pestering her, but she went on working for the work of a teacher. She lived by her word, which she gave to the masters. This is a commitment perhaps which we all have to perhaps understand and follow in our lives, what the commitment means. A lot of people say Satyameva Jayate, we would say Divyagnanameva Jayate. Do we have that written on our heart? Not on a piece of paper or in a book. It is written on our heart, Divyagnanameva Jayate. So it's entirely through her efforts we have received the contents of Brahma Vidya, thanks to Madam Blavatsky. We say thanks, but we have to be completely indebted to her, because she is the person who also requested the masters to write those letters to Mr. Sinnett and Mr. Hume. She was instrumental in it. And so we have that book, the Mahatma's Letters. So there are two sources of theosophy, predominant sources. One, HPB's writings, and the second one, or the primary one, Master's Letters, or the Mahatma's Letters. And she starts her subject proper by saying, a quotation again, from the Voice of the Silence, to reach nirvana, one must reach self-knowledge. To reach nirvana, one must reach self-knowledge. Self-knowledge, translated into Sanskrit, means Atma-vidya. And self-knowledge is loving deeds. Of course, there is a couple of more words, but this would make good reading and understanding purposes. To reach nirvana, one must reach self-knowledge, and self-knowledge is loving deeds. What is nirvana? We will touch upon this briefly. We will not get into a lot of details. Madam Blavatsky has written about this extensively in her magnum opus, The Sacred Doctrine, and in her writings too. There is a lot of reference to nirvana. Nirvana is a Buddhistic term. The Voice of the Silence. For those people who are from Telugu area, I'm just giving this information, perhaps you know this. It is based on a book which was written in Telugu, and she translated it into English. There were 93 axioms, she picked up 39. That's how the book, The Voice of the Silence, was made up. And this information is only to enthuse people from Telugu knowing areas so that they pick up the book and make it into a sadhana grantha. His voice of the silence is a sadhana grantha, like at the feet of the master, light in the path. The three are called the sadhana granthas. And during the period of Satapati ji, we had that book published together, the three jewels. So that was something which we all like to carry simply rather than carry three small books. And what exactly nirvana means, she says it is extinction or disappearance. Extinction or disappearance. Of what? We'll go into it. It is the highest state a man can reach, a state of enlightenment. So, what is that we extinguish? It is avidya. Avidya means not having the proper knowledge, which has all these contents like the lust for life, greed, hatred, etc., etc. There's so many things we can add on. And in the Sanatana Dharma, we talk about the 6 negative qualities: kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, and matsarya. So these are the things which we are supposed to drop. So my guru who taught me Ramayana, he said 60 means when you complete your 60th year, the 6 should go, you should become a 0. The 6 should go and you become a 0. That's just Sastipurti. Not that I am getting into 61st year and celebrate it, make it into a grand occasion. That's okay. 6, you forget. Drop them. So this 6 which we are talking about should get away or get dropped from our life. So this is the Hindu terminology. We are comfortable sometimes using the Hindu terminology. And moksha is another name, another word which we use frequently, that is liberation, translated into English, and staying in conjunction with or union with the Parabrahman. That's the final thing. Moksha is liberation actually from all attachments. When he is in that state where there is no attachment, perhaps he is fit enough to go and get back to the source. So this comes through sadhana. One can conquer all this through sadhana. So exertion means that, exertion to do away with all that which is not required. Man lives using his lower quaternary as we, because this is all theosophical gathering. If there are some members perhaps who are audience who are non-members, yes, I would explain to them later. But then we are all members of the Theosophical Society. We know what is lower quaternary. So the lower quaternary, if you are living, we are continuing to live in an ordinary sense of the term. But then when man lives or starts living with the higher principle, higher manas, and staying there, then he gets closer to the plane of buddhi and atma. 6th principle and the 7th principle. 7th principle has no vehicle. So if you are closer to the 6th principle, you are catapulted to the 7th. Atma has no vehicle. Buddhi has a vehicle. Atma uses the vehicle of the buddhi. So if you are nearer to buddhi, a spike goes from the higher manas to the buddhic plane. That's enlightenment. If you got in there, I think your journey is almost completed. So this is in brief the principles of nirvana which she has talked about. And we also hear a Sanskrit term, buddhi prachodana. Buddhi prachodana means the awakening of the intuition, not the intelligence. We're not talking about intelligence, we're talking about intuition. That is the 6th principle's faculty. So that is enlightenment. Another term which Madam Blavatsky used, paranirvana, that is also there in the same book, The Secret Doctrine, elsewhere also. And that is where everything disappears, where everything which is there in existence disappears, and the universe merges into that oneness from where it came. That is the paranirvana. So these are the 2 terms, Buddhistic terms, which he has used. And getting back to the source, getting back to the source. So we are all living separately. We think we are separate, but we are all connected. That connection we are going to establish back through our sadhana, getting back. So this is what we are attempting. That is the sadhana we have to do. HPP simply adds, to reach nirvana, one must attain self-knowledge. She says that simply. HPP simply adds, to reach nirvana, one must attain self-knowledge. And that comes when the man's heart is filled with love and compassion. When the man's heart is filled with love and compassion. And he gets into the service mode. He gets into the service mode. That's why perhaps that's old saying, Manav Seva, Madhav Seva. Perhaps, so we can, if you are comfortable with that, we can use that too. This is how the brief introduction which Madam is using her expressions to tell us how exactly one has to move towards the goal, which is getting back to the source. So, we'll go to the first segment, which is talked about, and one second. Yes. Without hesitation, Radhaji says, without hesitation, HPB said theosophy is not a religion, but it is wisdom hyphen religion. It's not a new religion. We should not say it's a religion, but it is wisdom hyphen religion. There is a small, there somebody says it's not audible. I don't know what I should do. Still come closer.
Direction.
Okay.
Just see now.
She came to direct that, and she used to address us at the youth lodge how to speak in public. So she told us that this should be 12 inches from the your speaking ability and the grasping ability of the mic. There should be a distance. But I don't know this new mic, how exactly it works. Anyway, I suppose audible now, right? Religion we understand normally as a code of conduct or dharma, as we say. The average man knows the worldly wisdom. The average man knows the worldly wisdom which gives his bread. But man doesn't live on bread alone. So there is wisdom beyond the ordinary, which has to be approached by serious, thinking, meditative, contemplative students. So this is what is expected of a student. The serious students, the thinking students, the meditative students, the contemplative students. The students are common, but these are all the qualities they should have. So divine wisdom, another way of putting the same thing. Divine wisdom says the key to theosophy, the book Key to Theosophy, is not wisdom of God. We are not talking about the God, the capital G. We are not talking about the capital G, Almighty. We are not talking about that. But we are talking about gods, the small gods, or divine persons, or godly persons. That is divine wisdom as per the book, The Key to Theosophy. Madame Blavatsky, who received this wisdom through a series of lessons she received from her spiritual teachers, and with their help, I'm saying, she codified the theosophical wisdom for all of us to understand, study, and assimilate. So that's why theosophy sometimes is called an occult science, Gupta Shastra. So she was instrumental, and it is at her request the knowledge is made available to us. To give an example of the wisdom religion, we have a great banyan tree at Adyar. Most of you, if you have visited Adyar, would have seen it. It has got a trunk, huge trunk. It has got branches. It has also got shoots, which goes into the ground again. They also become branches again, or thick trunks again. So this wisdom religion is like the trunk from where all these religions have come up at different epochs of time, and some segments or some small divisions of the same religion or those off-truths. So that's how we can understand the wisdom religion. That's one way of understanding the wisdom religion. Imagine the banyan tree and the branches and the off-truths and the trunk. The trunk is the wisdom. The off-truths are all other religions. Another way of putting it, which is there in our literature, wisdom religion is the bedrock of a river. The bedrock of a river, which is there, which is always there, doesn't get destroyed or doesn't get moved. But the water on top of it goes on changing. The water goes on changing depending on the season or depending on the rainfall. So the religions which came later can be compared with those water which comes and which goes, another water which comes and goes. So the bedrock remains the same. So the bedrock is the wisdom religion, and the waters which have flown over the bedrock are the various religions. This is how wisdom religion was explained in our literature. And Madam Radhaji is very, very careful when she says any amount of study of the literature is only half job done, or it's very elementary. So it's not that which is giving the overall improvement in oneself. It is more the understanding and living the right kind of life which is more important. Gathering knowledge, having a good library and gathering knowledge is only half work done. So this is something Madam Radhaji used to say. So the pristine ancient truths have been unveiled at different epochs of time. They are all called various religions. So we have seen what wisdom religion is all about, and what we are supposed to do as the second object of the Theosophical Society is to encourage study of comparative religion. Encourage study of comparative religion. And as somebody was mentioning the other day, it was the third object which was the main object when it was formed, when the society was formed. That is what the history says. To present the Eastern wisdom to the Westerners and to explain the unexplained laws of nature and powers latent in man. That was the first object in 1875. And these objects got restated with the help of the masters. In fact, they were instrumental in writing the rewriting because the experiment was on unity, finding the unity, bringing all things together. So that was the experiment they wanted to do. So they restated the objects, and they said we have to form a nucleus of universal brotherhood without distinctions of this, this, this. So that was the first object which was restated by masters in 1979. The first 16 years of the existence of the Theosophical Society, if you read the history of that period, that gives a lot of insights into what really happened at that point of time. So this is the wisdom religion, or the Gupta Vidya, or the sacred wisdom, so many names to it. So all this is Brahma Vidya. All this is perhaps something which we need to understand, assimilate, and live the right kind of life. Radhaji gives a quote from the book of Mahatma Letters sent to AP Senate, letter number 49 of the Adyar edition, which is incidentally the Barker edition. There is another edition which is edited by Vic Jr., and that's chronological order. And this is the Barker edition, the older book, which I have taken it from my grandfather. So there, the 49th letter says, the illumination must come from within. That's the quote. The illumination must come from within. This is there in the book, the self-knowledge book. That quotation is there. So the obtention or the finding or reaching nearer to the truth is not an external journey. It's not an external journey, it's an internal journey. One has to find the truth all by himself. So as we said some time back, if the lower quaternary is taken care of, we remain with the fifth principle, the higher manas, and that will take us to illumination. So that illumination has to come from within. Nothing external can help us. No guru externally would be able to help us. This is perhaps how we should understand even Brother J.K. So this exertion which we are talking about is the sadhana or tapas, if some people want to use that word. And illumination comes because we are concentrating, using our dharana. This is another word which Madam Blavatsky uses very frequently. And that will guide him, and that will guide him to travel inside him, go inside and find out the truth for all by himself and live the truth. That's more important, living the truth. So gathering of knowledge, as Madam Radhaji says, is only half job done. It's only 50% of the work done. That's not all. One has to really fall back onto the understanding, assimilating, and living the right kind of life. That's more important. Etymologically speaking, the term religion means the unification of one single part with the universal whole. Etymologically speaking, the term religion means unification of one single part with the entire unified one whole. So religion is one which binds us back to the source. Religion is one which binds us back to the source. This is how we have to understand religion. It should not split us. It does not make us into different groups. So this is the religion as she talked about. And religion is not a particular set of dogmas or beliefs or rituals or procedures, because Radhaji came after my grandfather passed away home and said, I'm happy that you have not done all those obsequies. I said, my grandfather told us not required, so we have not done it. So she was very happy. Said, because just doing it for the sake of doing it, you don't gain anything. Maybe the priest gains, but we don't gain anything. So she said, if the person knows what happens to him after death, nothing need to be done. So that's how we get rid of rituals which are not required, dogmas which are not required. Dogmatic presentation means I say this is the truth and nothing else is the truth. That's dogmatic. And how Brother Sri Ram changed, therefore, to also in the universal prayer was only based on that. Therefore is like proving a theorem. So he said, shall we use this? No. Also, we can say, he is also one with every other. So that's how the coining of the also came in to the universal prayer, which is done outside and perhaps elsewhere. They say therefore. So religion per se, HBB says, in its wider sense, is that which binds us, not only men together, but all beings, all living beings. They're all together. All living beings, the entire universe, they're all brought together. And very good. And here is another quotation, again from the magazine Lucifer, which she edited when she went back to UK, Madam Blavatsky. She says, all beings and all things in the entire universe into one grand whole. That's how we have to understand that. So religion per se, in its wider sense, is that which binds us, not only men together, but also all beings and all things, inanimate objects also, in the entire universe into one grand whole. That's the quote of HPV from Lucifer, volume 5. I think we get it in the Idea Library like that, but maybe in the internet these days we get it. I'm not quite sure. I'm not seen in the internet. Maybe it is there in the internet too. So the author says, Madam Radhaji says, it is so universal, the approach of theosophy is so universal and all embracing, this bond of unity which we are talking about, that no man, no speck of dust, and no molecule from gods to mortals, none of them are accepted or not considered, not kept aside. So down to animals, and she uses this frame number of times, this phrase, even the blade of grass. Radhaji has used this blade of grass number of occasions, so many books. So she says this bond of unity is all these things put together, and nothing can be outside this, and this is the sum and substance of what unity and oneness is all about. So based on that wisdom religion, which is theosophy, as Madame Blavatsky has told us, and the first object for the Theosophical Society has emanated from this. So that's why we say creating a nucleus of universal brotherhood. Where is that nucleus? Not external again. It is within us, within our heart. That's something which we all know, but we should not look elsewhere for the nucleus. Yes, all of us put together, perhaps a bigger nucleus formed, but then this is how we have to understand. So Radhaji says the concept of universal brotherhood. She says the concept of universal brotherhood cannot be cannot be made of a weak fraternity. The concept of universal brotherhood cannot be made out of a weak fraternity, meaning it's not a weak thing, it's not a natural thing, but it is a strong gathering of people, gathering not at the external level or with a view to build a social, better relationship or camaraderie. She very clear. It's not external. The brotherhood is not something external. Yes, we may have a lot of other associations where we have a lot of togetherness, but that's not the togetherness we're talking about. She says it's not a weak fraternity. The roots of the universal brotherhood have to be traced from a deeper level, and all of us who accept the aims and objects of the society to make the society into a vibrant, stronger organization. So we have to realize the purpose very clearly, the purpose of the Theosophical Society very clearly, that is to form the togetherness, the universal togetherness, the oneness. That universal principle, that one principle, gives life to all and builds a bond of unity amongst all universal beings. Universal, so many beings are there. You may see an ant, but ant has got his energy. We have energy. Madame Blavatsky talks about an ox having the same thing as human being. So we don't treat an ox with a feeling that that's a lower animal. No. The content and the life pattern which is there in ox is as good as what is there in me. So this is how we have to understand the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the mineral kingdom. So this is how the universality has to be built in. This universal brotherhood, Madam Radhaji says, must have a regenerating, practical quality and power if it is to be if it is to be of real value. If universal brotherhood is to be of a real value, it's not a weak fraternity, she said some time back, and she says it should be practical. The brotherhood should be practical and it should have a regenerating capabilities. Why regenerating? When man is born, he has got that self-preserving principle. So we continually protect ourselves. But then she is talking about the real value. She says, what is regeneration? Leaving off all that is selfish, becoming unselfish. That's perhaps regenerating. So that's what is the main theme of those lectures at Narden, which has been produced into a book called The Human Regeneration. So we should have a loving disposition towards all beings. And the capacity to associate ourselves with the welfare of all, not just the human beings, but even the animals. And animals, elsewhere she says, they know the pain, but they don't have sorrow in them. Animals don't have sorrow in them, but they have pain. They do realize pain. And man inflicts that pain. Man inflicts that pain. So this is, they'll come somewhere else. At that time, perhaps we will consider it again. And we need to have this ability to include everyone. Theosophy is inclusive philosophy. It doesn't exclude anything. But unfortunately, sometimes exclusion is practiced, but it is inclusive philosophy. So I, me, or myself is replaced by the all self, or I, or me. M, if you reverse it becomes we. M, if you reverse it becomes we. So it is we have to talk about, not me. That's what brotherhood means. So if brotherhood remains impractical, and if we know the term only as it exists in the book, not in our life, then it's of no use. She says very clearly, it's of no use at all, no avail. So genuinely, practically, if it's not a fact, if it's just a theory, so it's not going to help us. So when this is realized by me, and I realize that I'm part of the whole, I'm saying whole because everything is included in that. And that realization, if it becomes a fact of life, and it becomes a truth to me inside, not just to talk about, dear brother Amrut, that's one way of saying. But then, do I really mean, do I really have that brotherly feeling from inside? That's more important, more relevant. A lot of people will hear, dear brother, but that brotherly thing is flowing, that current is flowing from you to the other person. That's more important. So that's what perhaps she says is more practical than theoretical. So accumulating knowledge is of no use. She goes on saying a couple of times. So realization that it is a fact of life, brotherhood is a fact of life, and in everyday life it becomes part and parcel of our life, and that would lead us to the practical, universal brotherhood. It is not something which is there in books. It is not unnatural, as some people say. It is very natural, since we have come into this world as an individual, and this individual has a component which is common to all the individuals. The Prana Tattva is there in everything which we see around. And if we realize that Prana Tattva is one, then we are together. When we realize my life is different, Amrut's life is different, Tharal's life is different, then we go in separate ways. So when we say we have togetherness in the real sense of the term, then we are practicing the universal brotherhood in reality. So how to practice? We have to put it in practice. Driving, for example, in the beginning was very difficult. Driving a car, I mean, very difficult. But now I can drive talking to my wife, looking outside into the advertisement billboards. That's possible now. But in the beginning, it was very difficult. I used to be like that. Now it's not that. So this is how, even this, when we put it into practice, not simply talk about being brother and having something else inside. I told recently somebody whom I visited, I have nothing against nobody. None of them are against me. Even if they're against me, I'm with them. My grandfather once told me, you love someone who loves you, that's ordinary. Somebody doesn't love you, you still love him. That is something which you have to cultivate. That man talks behind you and you still hold him in esteem and still call him your brother. That's the test of brotherhood. So this is what I learned from him. We saw him and learned. He never told us, do this, do that. So that's how we learned. He was a teacher by profession, but then we saw him and we learned. Yeah. So that truth which we have to realize is something which is inside all of us and not external, is something which we have stressed again and again. So what happens when a person becomes unselfish? What is the transformation taking place? He becomes a natural candidate for living a brotherly life. He becomes a natural candidate to live a brotherly life. So that's the key. Drop the unselfishness, you become a candidate for the universal brotherhood. Cultivate selfishness, you move away from the brotherliness. This is then what happens. I think last convention I was talking. Brotherly becomes otherly. We are removed, otherly. It becomes otherliness. Brotherliness, otherliness, both are there in that. So BR is removed. If I'm removing selfishness, I'm brotherly. If I'm more selfish, I'm otherly. This is what it is. So the journey towards unselfishness is based on right and firm determination and conviction. That's the way to live. And one has the ability to look in within oneself every night before he hits the bed. If there is anything which I have done which is selfish, anything which I have done which is selfish, did I project myself? Did I say something which I spent a lot of time, and so I also repent sometimes if some words have escaped which are not worth saying, if they have gone out of my vocal cords. I tell myself I will not do this, and perhaps I have not seen physically them, but then I seek their pardon because I should not repeat it. So I'm convinced that's not the way. So if conviction is there, we will not repeat it. This is the whole crux of it. So how to remove this selfishness is through real trial, and trial, a serious trial as that, and not something which we do once in a way. It is nirantara sadhana. Antara is gap. Nirantara means there is no gap. Every time, anytime, any minute of his waking life or in even sleeping life, he is practicing that unselfish attitude. That should be the aim of at least this 14,000 of Indian section members. Then it becomes more stronger. The links become more stronger. So this is how one goes. And then she slides into one segment, from one segment to another segment in the book, the small book which we have. She slides from one segment to another segment, and now she talks about know by personal experience, the second segment. The first one is all introduction to the subject. The second one she talks about know by personal experience. Continuing her emphasis on practicality, the wisdom. The wisdom should be practical, otherwise it's of no use. If there is a staff available to support me while walking, if it breaks, it's of no use. That should help me to walk properly, steadily. So wisdom is like dharma, is something like a walking stick. You make three parts of it. The fourth one is something with you. Dharma is there with you. You remove three, the fourth one remains with you. So the practicality, the wisdom, whether it is wisdom religion or theosophy, that's what is expected of all the members of the Theosophical Society, as Radhaji says. And the earnest students, Madam is saying, the earnest students of theosophy must wish to do more than study. She is not suggesting don't study, because she said more than study, keep away the books is not the things. So some people, they read between the lines and they say, oh, she's not for studying, so I keep away the books. No, she's not suggesting that. She's saying it is more than study. Theoretically, the truths the theosophical literature propounds or puts up. More than that. So there's a quote which she gives in support of that from the literature number 11, which is a fairly long one. I have not made a slide of it. The recognition of the higher phases of man's being on this planet is not to be obtained by mere acquirement of knowledge. Volumes of most perfectly constructed information cannot reveal to man life in the higher regions. One has to get a knowledge of spiritual facts by personal experience. This is the quote, and she put that as the heading of the second segment, know by personal experience. So you can know, get how inspired she is by the wisdom of the higher ones. I'll read the long quotation once again for noting down the operative segment of that particular quotation. The recognition of the higher phases of man's being on this planet is not to be obtained by mere acquirement of knowledge. Knowledge, what we get from books or from hearing or anything, that's not that. Volumes of most perfectly constructed information cannot reveal to man life in higher realms or higher regions. What is higher life cannot be understood by simply reading about Devchanic plane. You may have some information, all right, but how do you get in there is by practical experience. That's what she's saying. So man, life in the higher regions, that's exactly, not through knowledge, not through lectures. Even this is mere words. So one has to get a knowledge of spiritual facts. One has to get knowledge of spiritual facts by personal experience. This is the reason why she has put the next segment, the heading as know by personal experience. So the student should strive, Madam says, the student should strive to know the truth by personal experience. By study, by contemplating, this is the process. This is the only process. Study, contemplation, and meditating. Meditating is actually, if you really go into the etymological meaning, thinking deeply about the content. So meditating and what was studied. Annie Besant says in one of the books which we studied in our federation, you study for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, close the book and contemplate on it. And again read the portion which you have covered. And then perhaps you know much more than what you understood by reading it for the first time. The second time you have heard or you have gone through the content is after contemplating on it. That gives you a wider vista. So that's what she says. That's the method of study. So she is suggesting also the same thing. Study, contemplating, and meditating on what was studied. So that the person converts the knowledge into his personal wisdom. Only when I own those contents as mine, I internalize it, it becomes mine. Otherwise, it becomes Leadbeater's or it becomes X, Y, Z, anyone, even Blavatsky. So, unless you understand, study, internalize it, make it your own, it is not wisdom. It is simply facts which are mentioned by a lot of people, a lot of learned people. So, this is what converts, internalizes the studied portion, makes it one's own, and then becomes wisdom. I think we have a terminology in the Vedantic text also, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasa. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasa. So Nididhyasa helps you to internalize it. You're always thinking of that principle. Whenever you get time, you think about that, what you have studied in the morning. So that's exactly what Nidhi Jhasa is all about. One of the teachers which I told you about, the person who taught Ramayana, if oil is poured from one big container into a smaller container, it goes on without uninterruptedly, it falls into the small container. That is how Nididhyasa has to happen. Nididhyasa has to happen with no interruptions. So it happens as if the oil is being poured from a big container to a small container where the flow is continuous, you're able to see through, in fact, and it's falling. That is Nididhyasa. So this is how one has to consider this study which we make and internalize it, and then becomes one's own wisdom. This is what we are supposed to do, what we are supposed to acquire. And then it becomes, the idea becomes a fact of life. Then it becomes a fact of life. It's a truth. We can live with the truth. So then when it becomes truth, when it becomes, that person becomes brotherly, he can effectively help others, says Madam Radhaji. He can effectively help others only when he knows the other person is a brother. If he is not someone whom he treats not as a brother, how can he help? He will not help. He will only think differently, off tangent he will go. So effectively, if one wants to help others, as one would help himself, this is something which is echoing something like what Christ perhaps said in the Bible. If effectively you want to help others as he would help himself, then it becomes a fact, it becomes a truth. So HPB warns in a book, The Key to Theosophy, the student should use his discretion, the capacity to discriminate, and act judiciously so that one remains on the path of service. This is important. If you have decided to do service, you should live to continue to do service. She points out an example of Father Damien, who was only 30-year-old or 32-year-old, who went and worked with the leprosy camps. He got involved so much that he contracted the disease and he perished. He died. So that's not the way to work. You should definitely do with a lot of discretion, judiciously, effectively, considering the other person as part of you, and then perhaps you would make the right service, the right kind of service. This is what she wants. So Father Damien is one example, Damien. Damien. He was only 30 years old when he died because of his jumping into the service of serving the lepers. It was a good cause, but then he should have taken due care of himself too. So this is what happened and what is given in the Key to Theosophy. So according to Radhaji, intellectual speculation and arguments, intellectual speculation, intellectual. That means I know one thing, Taral knows another thing, Lakshmi doesn't know the third thing. We argue. That's not going to lead us anywhere. We may lose the friendship. That's one thing which would definitely happen because we are arguing. So, intellectual speculation and argument and other topics, and even if these are related to theosophy, is not synonymous or equivalent to really knowing theosophy. Not synonymous or equivalent to really knowing theosophy. You know something as things go now as to what, for example, brotherliness is. You live with it, you improve upon it. You don't have to necessarily argue with X, Y, Z, not necessary. You keep that wisdom all for yourself and evolve. So that's the message there. So knowing theosophy is why. Why should we know theosophy? Is to get back to the source of oneness, practice brotherhood. And then she says a gnani, a wise person, a wise man, doesn't talk much, but works for the cause of oneness. There are a lot of people whom we have seen in our lives, because every Tamilian house we go, a lot of people here from Pondicherry are there. For them, it's very close, Tiruvannamalai. There is that picture of Ramana. I never knew who that person was. When I was living at Adyar, I never really could understand who this person is there almost in every house. But that's Ramana, who would only communicate through silence. Mauna Vyakhyana Prakatitam, as Dakshinamurti Stotram says. Incidentally, Radhaji liked that Stotram quite a lot. Like, I don't know how many people know, JK also liked Dakshinamurti Stotram. You may banish me from this place because I'm saying that. But then he carried neatly written, calligraphed Dakshinamurti Stotram in his pocket. That's the truth. We were lucky because we were living in Adyar. I could see Krishnamurti ji at that distance, sitting close to him, looking into his. And very interestingly, he gave me and my person who used to take me there, a girl by name Shakuntala, breakfast. So I put my hand immediately to eat idli. That girl was saying, no, no, don't do it. But he said, well, let him have it that way. That's the usual way, no? Why are you objecting? So that's Krishnamurti for understanding a person. Great man. So, a gnani or a wise man doesn't talk much but works for the cause of oneness. So, knowledge or information will not lead us anywhere. Knowledge or information will not lead us anywhere. It is wisdom acquired with due meditation and contemplation which will deliver us. So, this is the real message which she is giving in this particular segment. And knowledge is related to matter, knowledge is related to matter, and wisdom is related to the spirit. There is a difference, vast difference between matter and spirit. So knowledge is related to matter, wisdom is related to the spirit. So man has to endeavor to arrive and become spiritually perfect human being. Perfect being. Yeah, it goes without saying is a human. So this is what she conveyed to us. Knowledge is related to matter. This is something which we need to carry it in our knowledge related to matter. I download a lot of things from internet. Parapsychology said this, X said this, Y said this. Does it make theosophy? And if I'm not correlating what parapsychologists said, if there is something correlation in theosophy, can it be theosophical in approach if I'm talking only of parapsychologists' way of presenting his understanding of what a mind is? Because we heard, as per one of the psychologists, mind has 4 divisions. But we are told in the theosophic literature there is 2 divisions, but the second one is only, the line is only an imaginary line. That's not exactly a line because we are concentrating more on the lower. We think that's real. Only when we leave that, we perhaps go to the next one. Like we give the often quoted example, the pole vaulter uses the pole to propel him to the other side, right? Pole vaulter uses the fiberglass poles these days to propel him to the other side. If he holds on to the pole, he can't go there. So if he leaves this, he can go there. And a trapeze artist in the circus is using one to swing, and then he finds something else coming in the opposite direction. If he leaves this, then he can catch that. Holding on to this, he can't catch that. So this is exactly what we are also supposed to do. If we're carrying on with matter, we can't get to the spirit. And she says, wisdom will be there only when you are in touch with the spirit. So this is the endeavor we are supposed to try very, very sincerely to be part of the people or part of the group which will be with the spirit, not with the matter. It's time? Yeah. We'll break for tea. Mahapatraji is, yeah.